Does anybody else wish that there were more just straight reviews on YouTube? Sometimes I feel like with makeup, people get really caught up in speed reviews and things like that, and sometimes I just want to see a single product, like the single product that I'm looking for, and like a super in-depth review on that. I'm going to start with a couple of favorites. I'm starting a series basically going through some of my favorite products and a really in-depth review on them. Comparing them to other products, why I like them, why they are worth the money to me. So the first one I'm doing is the Nars Laguna Bronzer. This one is in the shade 3. Now, I don't know if you can see that, but I have made a pretty significant dip in this product. And that's part of the reason that I wanted to review this, is because I'm like, this is very well loved. And sometimes you know how you can tell that someone really likes a product when it's super well loved. So let's start here. I first want to compare price-wise to some other products. So this is the Nars Laguna Bronzer at Sephora. It is actually kind of an expensive product. At Sephora, it retails for $38, and it comes with 0.67 ounces, which that's actually a lot, although the packaging does make it seem like it's more than it is, because it's fairly thick packaging. So something else to keep in mind is that although it's more expensive than some other options, it is fairly on par with the higher end bronzers out there. So I pulled up a few other ones to compare it to. If you've ever looked and seen the Fenty Cheeks Out Cream Bronzer, that's $35, and it actually only comes with 0.22 ounces or 6.23 grams. So the Nars actually has a lot more for just $3 more. The Rare Beauty one is $26, and it also has quite a significant less product than the Nars one. It retails for $26, but again, it only has 0.25 ounces or 7 grams. If we're going more towards a lower end, obviously you're going to pay less money for it. I'm mostly pulling up products that I actually have so that I can show them to you, although I do not have the Rare Beauty one. I've heard really good things about it. Anyways, so the ColourPop one is $9, but it's actually only 0.18 ounces, which isn't very much. The e.l.f. Putty Bronzer is 0.35. It's $7, which means that the Laguna Bronzer actually has twice as much. It costs a lot more, but it has twice as much product in it. Then we also have the Sculpt Tape from Tarte, which is $35, and it only has 0.4 ounces, which that's insanely a little amount. Last, we have the Milani Contour, and that is 0.2 ounces, so very little. So price-wise, I think that honestly, it's fairly comparable, especially if you're looking at the Milani one. It's $10, or it's almost $11, so we're going to say it's $11 because it's $10.99, but it only has 0.2 ounces. If they were to actually put the same amount that's in this Nars one, it would cost about, let's see, 10. So if they were to put the same amount in that Milani bronzer, it would be about $35. So honestly, price-wise, the comparison is there because they give you so much product in here. Let's talk a little bit about the packaging. I am not a packaging snob. I couldn't care less. However, I do want to kind of recap and tell you a little bit more. Sorry, my drawer is open back there and it's driving me nuts. I'll be right back. So the packaging, it does come at like this soft touch matte packaging through this bottom part, and it says the color on the bottom. I also like that although it's a soft touch packaging, you can kind of see the color through here, which is kind of nice. It's got this gold reflective on the top. I have to say, I don't like how dirty this gets, but it is pretty. Most of my products, I'm a makeup snob and I have so much makeup, most of my products actually sit in a drawer, so it's not like this is really seen, but it does look nice. I will say this is plastic, this lid is, and this is also plastic. So if you're like, I really want like a nice heavy weighted something, this is not that. The packaging isn't what most people would call the luxury experience. Although, honestly, what I really like about it is the formula itself. So let's dive into that. I think that this does melt into the skin. If I'm like just doing a quick run around, like, do you see how much just comes off on my finger? I feel like this is one that it's really hard to mess up on. If I like swatch it, a little goes a long way, but it also is super, super blendable. Like, it just kind of blends out, versus some products I've found don't do that. And even like after it dries, I can kind of still smudge out the edges, which with a bronzer, sometimes I find it really easy to go a little overboard on it. The other thing with it is it's creamy but not oily. And keep in mind, I've tried a lot. I've tried a lot of makeup, I've tried just a lot of things in general. And the fact that this is very, very creamy, like I just blended that out to basically a nice contour, like tan type thing. And to be fair, I typically use contour products as kind of a bronzer situation. But that just blended out so prettily. A lot of these cream products I tend to find are a little bit oily. And this is going to be a weird description, but this one is creamy, but more in the dry sense. Like it blended out, but it doesn't feel oily on the skin. This is going to give more of like a soft touch matte feeling on the skin as well. So the best way to describe this is to swatch the Fenty one side by side with it. So let me pull that out. So I don't have anything bad to say about the Fenty one. I like it just fine. This is the Cheeks Out Cream Bronzer. Now, I do want this to be a fair comparison. The color that I have in this one is a little bit darker. So let me pull up the other one. This is the Nars one. This is my Fenty one. I bought this one in the summertime. I bought this one in the summertime, so I was a little bit darker at the time. But first of all, do you see how like this one, the Fenty one, has a lot more of a sheen? It's because the texture of it is a little bit more oily, versus this one, you don't really see that same sheen reflecting. So let's swatch those side by side. Again, very sheeny. Let me show you with another finger on the other one so I can just show you side by side. I just dug my nail into that one a little bit, but we're going to make it work. Okay, so look at them side by side. The Fenty one, Laguna one. Like this one, this one is very easy to blend out. It almost feels like a very cream to powder formula, versus this one, I almost feels like you have to work very quickly, but it also is very like oily almost. And like I said, I don't necessarily have a problem with this formula, but I just find that the working time, it feels a lot different with the Fenty one than it does with the Nars one. I feel like I can work with the Nars one a little bit better. The Fenty one, I feel like almost stays oily and then all of a sudden it's not. All of a sudden it's like dried down, and it seems to happen pretty quickly. All right, I'm gonna makeup wipe so I can show you some other swatches. All right, the back of my hand is gonna need some lotion after this. All right, now that my hand is clean, let me show you in comparison to the Tarte one. Now, like I said, I have a lot of bronzers. This one's my favorite. This one is technically supposed to be a contour, but we're gonna ignore that fact because I don't think that it's a really true bronzer. But I'm gonna put a little bit on my finger. Now this one is more of a liquid, but I find that this one tends to be a little bit more, again, this one's more liquidy, but I find that it sometimes can be a little bit intense and hard to blend out. So the not Milani, Tarte Nars, but let's blend out this top one. This one, I feel like if you put on even a little bit too much, you're screwed because it kind of stays where you place it if you don't work very, very fast. And do you see how there's a little bit of patchiness with that one? Versus the Nars one almost blends out to nothing. I don't know if you can tell this, but there's some patchiness because I put a little bit more on this side and blending it out was a little bit difficult. Don't get me wrong, I actually do like the Tarte one. I think that it gets a bad rap because people are like, it's not as good as the Charlotte Tilbury one. I haven't tried the Charlotte Tilbury one. I do like the Tarte one. It isn't necessarily a go-to for me though. Like, in a world of great makeup, this one's good. Here's another one that I want to just compare it to, just for the sake of argument, because like I said, there are cheaper options. There's a lot of drugstore options. Now, I think that probably the ones that are closest to the Nars one are probably the drugstore ones that I have, as far as in color, but also in finish. But let me just show you. So this is the e.l.f. one. It's the e.l.f. potty bronzer. That's gross. It's the e.l.f. putty bronzer. Now, this one, I believe they do claim this one to be a liquid to powder finish, cream to powder, but the color is actually really similar. Again, the reflect is different on this one. Like, this one does look more greasy in the tin. Like, this one just looks, okay, in the package, the Nars one looks like it's dry. It's not at all. Like, you barely touch it and it's like straight up just smooth. But let's compare it with each other. I've never actually made this direct comparison with this one before. Okay, so this one is a little bit more creamy, like creamy leaning oily. The Nars one is, or not the Nars one. The e.l.f. one is more creamy leaning oily than this Nars guy. All right, and honestly, when I'm holding these up side by side, I'm finding that the Nars, although it claims to be a bronzer, it's kind of on the cooler side. Like, when you swatch it, it looks gray, especially compared to the e.l.f. one. So, this is the Nars one. This is the e.l.f. one. This does seem to blend out really nicely. Not in the same way. Like, this one almost blends out to, like, you can blend the edges and keep blending. This one did have a lot more dry down. Although I do like this one. But this one, it's, you can just keep blending it and keep blending it. So that's the difference there. Like, a little bit more creamy, a lot more dry down. And this one, you would have to blend fairly quickly, I think. Now, all right, last one. Now, second to the last one that I'm comparing this one to. We have, and again, these two are probably the most similar, but we have the ColourPop Super Shock Bronzer next to the e.l.f. one. Again, different colors. This one, still, again, not as much as some of the rest of them, but the finish on this one is probably the closest. So let's go ahead and swatch this one. Although this one feels like a true, like, putty, like when you press into it, whereas the Nars one, it feels like a cream. But let's swatch this, and then I'm going to pick up the other one, because That almost blended away to nothing. But I think that honestly, the dry down is very similar on this one. The Super Shock is probably the closest, although I think that the Nars is more emollient. See that? This one blended away to nothing. Then we've got this guy. Alright, just for the sake of comparison, let's do one more. Alright, so this is the Milani one. Like I said, I think that this one is not very similar, but I want to show you guys why I feel this way. This one I actually like better than the Tarte one. I think this one's good. The applicator, not great. It does get very, very messy. Like, this cap is so messy. But I do like this one slightly better. Let's take a look. Oh, we want just maybe a little bit more product. Alright. Now this one's a liquid as well, so I'm not necessarily going to compare the textures, but this one you can blend for days as well, which is actually part of the reason I really like this one. I know people are like, it's not a dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury, but the blend on that is really pretty, and it kind of blends out very similarly to this Nars one. Now I want you to keep in mind the things that I'm looking for when I'm looking at just a bronzer. I like to not have to fight with it, which is why I like something that is going to blend very, very easily. I don't want to be fighting with my makeup to make it look good. I like when it's not super greasy. I like when it doesn't lift up all of my makeup underneath. I don't want it to be patchy. The other thing is I tend to wear very dewy foundations because my skin is on the dry side. And so some foundations can pick all of that up, or not some foundations, some bronzers pick all of that up. Something else that I do is I like to wear my makeup all day and I work a lot. So I don't want to have to retouch my makeup halfway throughout the day. I want to put it on at 6 o'clock in the morning and then come home at 9 o'clock at night and it still look good. Maybe not as good as when I applied it, but I want it to still look good. I don't want to have to be like touching it up and making sure it looks all right halfway through the day. And one of the ways that I do that is I actually will set all of my cream products with a powder counterpart before I set my face. So I'll put on a cream bronzer and then a powder bronzer to make sure that everything is staying like beautiful all day. Well, sometimes when I do that, if the product doesn't like that very much, it can get a little bit messy. So I found, I know this is not necessarily a bronzer, but the Too Faced Cloud Blush that everybody's so obsessed with right now, when I try to set my makeup, my blush, that's the word I'm looking for. When I try to set my blush with that powder, it picks up everything, and then I've got like little speckles of just horrible makeup. So those are the things that I look for. Yes, I worry about price, but price as in like, okay, is it comparable? Is it whatever to something else? And is it what I'm actually looking for? Because I'm telling you what, I did not expect to love this. I wish you could see how much of a dent I have made in this. It's like really hard to tell, but do you see that little like dip? I have used this. Like, this is always the one that I want to dip my brush into. Let me just show you. Let me just show you how this applies. So we're just gonna tap my brush in here a couple of times, and I don't know if you can tell this because it's a black brush, but it picked up a lot. And then we're just gonna start on the outer and pull it in. Now, I've worked with this a lot, but the first time that I used it, I put way too much on. Do you see how much just came out there? Like, comparison, right? A lot, right? That just, a lot just came out. Let me show you what happens if you go a little bit crazy. First of all, look at how much just came on my brush when I like straight up swirled it in there. I had to learn to be very careful not to do that really quickly. Typically I would tap this out on my brush, but I'm just going to show you how crazy this can get, how fast. But that it's really easy to fix. Do you see how insane that looks? That's a lot of product. So we're going to blend this up into my hairline, and then we're going to tap it out with a sponge. But that got really crazy really fast. It's like the Meredith Duxbury contour really quick. But that just blended away. And I mean, really honestly, I could probably get away with not using my sponge right now. Like, that doesn't even look crazy. But if I was feeling like it still looked a little bit crazy, I could even go in with my foundation brush and just keep blending that. Just like, you can't go overboard with this. And remember, I talked about I go for ease of use. This is just impossible not to be easy to use. Like, you can completely mess up with this bronzer and it's fine. Like, there's some that people say that with. I've definitely found some products that people say that with, and it's just not true. You can very easily mess up with it, and this is just not one of those products. Well, let me show you an example. Now that I've got my face all bronzed up, let's say I were like, oh man, this isn't what I'm looking for. And I were to go in with the Fenty one. I'm going to go in with the Fenty one on this side just to do a comparison. We're going to go a little bit overboard with this. Alright, I just picked up quite a bit on my brush. Like, there's a lot there. Ooh, I'm a little scared. This is going to be hard to blend out. So I'm going to blend up into my hairline just like what I did with the forehead stuff. But do you see how, like, it's almost just getting bigger? Like, that splotch that I created is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger instead of blending out. We're going to go in with a sponge a little bit and see if we can kind of tap out some of those corners. I mean, it worked, but it just doesn't look as natural and bronzy on this side. Now, to be fair, this is quite a bit darker, but I just find that you have to work so much harder to blend this guy out than I ever have to with the Nars bronzer. I tend to find that the Nars bronzer just does everything. It ticks all the boxes. It does everything that I want it to do. Versus, though I like the other ones that I've mentioned, sometimes I feel like I have to work a lot harder to get them to do exactly what I want them to do. And I hate that. I don't want to have to work hard to apply my makeup. That happens a lot for me with the Tarte one. So I'm going to go a little bit overboard with my forehead with this one so I can show you. Oh, so this one kind of scares me because I have accidentally applied too much before with this one and had to take it off. So, and this probably is way too much now, but let's go ahead and work on blending this out. We're going to go in with our handy dandy brush. Ooh, this is what I mean. I have gone in heavy-handed with this one before, and okay, already. So you remember how the Nars one, just kind of like I was able to buff it out and buff it into my hairline? This one already, like, I look like I'm wearing a headband. That's how crazy my bronzer looks right now. I look like I'm wearing a headband. So, let's see. Oh, I think it's drying down on me a little bit. Let's try to tap it out with a sponge. Do you see how it doesn't look as natural to me? And oh, it's starting to get spotty. Yeah, this happened the last time I tried to go. I worked really hard to fix it, but oh my gosh. Like, it looks patchy on my forehead a little bit too. I just find that that is very, very hard to do with this. Now, keep in mind, they're all different colors, but I bet you almost anything, even if I got a darker color of this, I would still be fine. Because I've just found that it blends so easily. Oh, that's bad. Ignore my forehead. We're just gonna cover that up for a minute. So, if you haven't tried the Nars Laguna Bronzer, I wish they had a small size, but oh my gosh, is this worth it. I wish that I had picked it up a lot sooner. It's a beautiful product. And honestly, it's worth the price, especially like comparatively to the Fenty one, even comparison to some of the drugstore ones. The price of this, comparatively, you're getting a lot per dollar, and there's a lot in here. Like I said, the Milani one, if they were to give you the same amount of product, it would actually be like $32, $33, which, come on, like break that all down, like it's not even as good as a product. And with the Fenty one, you don't get nearly the same amount. You get 6.23 grams or 0.22 ounces. You get double with this. So it's just breaking it down by price. This is a great product all around. Try it out, see what you think, but it really does tick all my boxes, and you can tell because holy crap, I've used a lot. I just wish you could, I mean, you can kind of see it like straight on, but the best way to see it is like there's actually a dip in there. And also the product is like all over the cap, all over the lid. I love this so much. Yeah, someone stole this. You know how there's like that trend going around where if I lost all my makeup, these are the first things that I would buy? And I don't say that about very many products. I just held up, let's see. I'm not even holding them all, but I just held up all of these products. It takes me, I don't go through products like this, and I'm going through this. I still have all of these. But as soon as I got this, I fell in love. It's so good. So try it out. I think that you'll see why I like this so much. Honestly, if I remember correctly, even on Sephora, it has, the Nars Laguna Bronzer almost has 5 stars. So if you're looking for a new bronzer, this is beautiful. Beautiful shade, beautiful formula, so much product. You should go try this out. I'm obsessed. Bye!